Hi! Today I'll be doing a cosplay tutorial showing you how to make Akame's bracer from Akame ga Kill. It's super simple and easy to make, and materials cost about $10 or less altogether, and this method can be modified for any other bracers or even cosplay armor. Starting off, you will need some craft foam. Now these are some small sheets that I got from the dollar store. Measure out your arm and make a template based on your measurements. Akame's bracer is made up of 4 parts, which are 3 along the arm and 1 on the hand. I cut out 2 copies of the template on craft foam and doubled them up with hot glue so it was a little bit more durable, a little bit thicker. Once the 2 pieces are attached, I trimmed them so they were the same shape. Akame's bracers have these little ridged parts along the edges. Now, in order to create that effect, I cut a thin strip of foam and cut it up into smaller squares. Then I used some hot glue to attach those strips along the side. I also used longer thin strips along the top and the bottom of those pieces. To cover up the side seams, I lined the edges with thin craft foam strips, and I repeated this step for the next 3 pieces. To create the arm part, I glued 3 of the pieces on top of each other to create that layered effect, and I did this for both of the bracers. So there you go, 2 bracers ready to be primed. Now I'm going to be taking some trusty wood glue or carpenter's glue and layering it over the top of the bracers. I like using the carpenter's glue as it cracks less and requires less sanding than gesso. Do about 2 to 3 layers of the glue, letting each layer dry before moving on to the next. Moving on to painting. Now, once the bracers have dried from the wood glue, I gave them a base coat of red acrylic paint. Then I started shading, and my method was basically working while the paint was wet, using darker paint in the corners to create the look of shadows, and lighter paint towards the center to create the look of a highlight. You can also do this with dry brushing. Basically wait until your base is dry, and then take a dry paintbrush and using a little bit of black paint, kind of work it into the edges. After everything had dried, I went over it with a coat of Mod Podge to seal it. Now this part is optional, as some people don't want their armor to look shiny, but I think it makes the color stand out. Here's a comparison of one bracer that has been sealed and one without Mod Podge, so you can kind of make your own judgment there. Finally, I glued some fleece squares on the underside so it would feel more comfortable, and some elastic around the edges so it will be wearable and attached to the wrist. And there we go, all done! I hope this tutorial was helpful, and make sure to leave any suggestions for future tutorials in the comments below. I'll see you next time. Shortly after that, we had to dash over to the YouTube panel, which is definitely the highlight of my weekend. Now this is pretty crazy because Emily and I arrived at the panel room about 10 minutes before the panel started, and the room was already packed, and they were stopping the amount of people that could get into the room. In our announcement videos, when we say arrive early for these YouTube panels, we really mean it, because sometimes